All right. So we're going to finish up this voting feature that I've been working on. And if you're new here, GoalPath is a tool, sort of like an issue tracking tool, but it's actually built to build roadmaps and communicate roadmaps both to developers and to stakeholders and everyone else in your software development company. It's based on like years of experience of building roadmaps and managing software teams. And the idea is that we sort of combine a lot of techniques that I know uh, have been working because I've tried a lot of different techniques to build with to work with the roadmaps, and this is what I prefer, and I think like most of this is quite effective. So what I've been working on, so I have my team working inside GoalPath for sort of for issue tracking and planning. I already have the roadmap up, so you can visualize a roadmap in there. The feature that we're working on is that I want to invite stakeholders so that they can do prioritization of the different milestones and goals in GoalPath, making it transparent what they think to my software development team. And hopefully this is useful for other people. But this is like the hobby project that I'm working on. So the voting feature is more or less complete. There are a few minor bugs, but I'll fix those. Um, but what I want to do now is I wanted to set it up so that I can merge everything and set it up in like production. Um, so the last thing that I mentioned, if you've been watching on other mornings. The last thing that I was working on was the cast vote feature. I got a warning. Never gotten a warning before. Seems to be working. All right. No, so the last thing that we were working on was the cast votes feature or action that needed a lot of refactoring because an LLM took charge of it. And we have the same thing in the update prioritization framework. And basically what it does, it created a lot of duplicated code. And what I want to do is I want to um, remove this duplicated code and use the ones that the code that I've been testing. And we're going to look at this together, but I just noticed that this update prioritization framework action that I've been working on, this is a mutation in TRPC. Um, it resets the averages. However, it does all the average calculation like by itself instead of actually using the method that I set up in for doing it. I have a libraries or sort of a library. I have like a shared function that should be used for doing all of this. So my hope that all of this code right here can just be removed into a single method action call. With that in place, then I'm ready to merge it. So with the update prioritization action, let's talk about a little bit about it because uh, it's in settings. Me as the owner of the project can go into settings and I can change the prioritization method that I use. And when it updates, it recalculates the averages. Now, I'm not sure I want that, but I definitely don't want it with duplicate code. So we're going to remove the duplicate code, but we're also going to, yeah, we'll see if I'll keep it. The reason that I perhaps don't want to keep it is because uh, I have a lot of milestones, and if you look at the code here, it goes through all the milestones and updates the averages and resets the scores and stuff. Like, all right, that's good. Um, but it might require a lot of like CPU time to actually do this, meaning the actual execution time might actually take too long. So therefore, I'm not too happy with it. But let's look at the cast vote. We can actually bring it up on the right here, so we can see both of them side by side. And we can see that this one does the updates for a single milestone. So we should do similar things to what we're doing here, specifically here, in here, instead of actually doing this. So what I want to do, this is actually correct. I've done that to do. I can take this, and what I want to do is I want to do that. If I can get this to work, we can see that the update down here is the same. So if we can get this to work, then I can remove all of the stuff down here. So let's start by fixing the import. We will need all of these imports here and just add them. It's a little bit of a copy and paste, but since we're doing the same thing, we're just doing it in a loop, and we're removing duplicate implementations. I think that's fine. I think this is just in the way right now, so I'm just going to remove all of this code. And we can see that I need the votes. So did I have the votes in here? That was a bit premature. Nope. We can do we can actually look how I get the votes in the cast vote, just to make sure that we're not, yeah. So we're getting the votes from the database, but as you can see, we're doing a map because this is actually something different than a vote. So that is something that I need to change. So let's do this then. Need to align data types here. I'm just adding to-dos for me to fix later. Since it's only me in the project, it doesn't worry me that I add to-dos in any way, because I'm the one taking care of it in the end. And I don't need anything more fancy than just a list of to-dos. I am using GoldPath though to sort of capture everything. It's just I'm capturing things that I want to refactor in the code as I view the code, because this is where I see it. All right, let's look at the votes here. We're actually including the votes as we're getting them when we're fetching the milestones. So votes for database, that's a bad name. That should be from database. We can actually rename that while we're at it. Rename symbol, votes from database. And we can go milestone.votes. And we should get all that. We still need the project. Do we have the project loaded? We do not. And we updated it just now, so we need to reload it regardless. So we need to do this. And this is interesting. This should not be an unknown project. And we're getting that from Prisma. Do we have Prisma in here? We should have. There it is. Project. We do have our existing project. However, we just updated it with new data. This can probably be done in a better way. But let's just load the project like this anyway to make sure we have the latest data. We're not going to do existing entity project ID that does not exist. So you join it like that, and we have the loaded project. We need to share the get framework with criterion. So here's a kicker. I could move this into the prioritization library right here. However, there's not a dependency at all in this for on Prisma. Maybe I'm overthinking it, so maybe we can move it, but it's not really what I want. I would prefer it not to have a dependency on Prisma in here. That's my type definitions. Let's go down here. Ah, there we go. We need to export that function. Export. And yes, we're going to fix that, I promise. There we go. Do we need the frameworks then? I don't think we do. We need this, however. And there we go. We don't need Prisma, but we do need the project definition from Prisma. So we're going to add that. And we're using it as a type as far as I know, so we can just do that. Now we have the frameworks, them, and we're going through frameworks. Interestingly, this means that the cast vote is no longer using this frameworks, and we're not using that. That makes me happy. Uh, this means that we have functions returning what we want. That means I can change the definitions in here, and I don't think I need to export those anymore. Interesting. We're gonna add a to-do. We can actually test that. To-do, because we need to finish the refactoring before we add more stuff to what to our to-do list. Can we remove this export? If we could, that would be amazing. Cool. The reason I want to remove the export, just to be transparent, is because if it's part of an internal library and I don't need to use it in other places, then removing the exports actually allows me to refactor things inside that library without affecting any of the other components. So the contract right now for this are the exported types. So if you would be in Java or C# or something that uses public or private, um, literally you want to keep your privates private if you can. It's a pretty good rule. But that because that allows you to encapsulate behavior and then refactor it as you go along. So you want the encapsulation effect. Anyway, now that we set this up so we export the get framework with criteria function as well, we can actually update our imports here. Then we have that. We need to make sure we have the project. That does not align. Why does not that? That's weird. No, oh yeah, because we might not have the project. Okay. Actually, that's what I wanted. If no project, project not found. So this is just an assertion. This should actually, I don't need that as comment. I can just, this should never happen. Because I have this, I now know that I have the project, and therefore we don't have a red error. So now we reduce the amount of code quite significantly. We can look at the changes here. No, we can look at the changes here. That's quite a lot of code we removed. And we are actually combining the functions that we're using, and hopefully we can remove the export from the prioritization framework that I set up here. So first off, let's make sure that it builds. Come on. Unfortunately, I'm using a lot of CPU as I'm building and streaming at the same time. That's something that I might need to fix at one point, but currently we're doing just fine. If this builds, I actually want to try to remove this export and rebuild it because removing the export, that should be like fine. Like the build should find an issue immediately if there's no export from that. And this really is really helpful to find like bad code or old code or code that's not used anymore. So that's why I want to keep um, the exports as few as possible, if possible. Dun, dun, dun. No. My Prisma project does not have a Prisma. Oh, wait. I I did the wrong import. Stupid. Fair. And then we remove that one. That's nice. Found it that that would have caused a crash. All right. Unfortunately, I still need to wait for that. But once this is done, I'm gonna run the tests. Yes, and then if the like probably I need to update the tests because the old implementation wasn't really functioning. But once that's done, this is commit, and I am actually ready to merge this feature and push it into production. I'm not done with it, but it's ready to go out and meet the wild. And come on, there we go. This means actually we don't need you to collect data. We need to remove this one, run the build, and if this works, we don't need that to do anymore. So we can actually preemptively remove it. Was actually used quite a lot to do. Then we know that we can't. Ha! Damn it. Okay. These were just warnings. Interesting. Need to fix that at one point. Just out of curiosity, what are you doing with these? Ah, that's the description. So for the tooltips, of course. All right. Maybe I can do something better here. But for now, we know that we can't remove that. So good. Actually, we also know that if we look at this git status, we can see that we only changed um, two actions. So we just need to run the test for those two actions. So let's start with the one that the main one. I expect this one to be failing. Um, because it used its own implementation of calculating averages, so it should be all over the place. Uh, oh, then it didn't really test the calculation either. Handle invalid framework, absolutely. Update should change prior and recalculate scores, absolutely. Create vote, blah, blah. And then it just checks if the business value score is higher than 0. This is fine because I don't, these are horrible test names, by the way. Actually, that's fine because I don't want the average testing to be in here. It should be on the test for the prioritization. So that should be fine. However, if I had tests there earlier, if the tests were more elaborate, I would have found the issue earlier. All right, we also updated the cast vote. So let's try that. npm run test cast vote. So I'm just running one test because there's almost 200 tests, and because I have people watching, I want it to be fast. There we go. Now everything is actually behaving the way I want. So the refactoring that we have done is we are using the shared average calculation. There we go. And that is actually the last thing that I need to do or want to do in this branch. What's going to happen now is I've started a pull request in GitHub. Um, that's for later today. I scheduled actually scheduled a streaming for later today because I'm starting a new feature later today. There's a pull request ready for it. I'll explain more in the streaming session I'm doing later tonight. But we can see that my CI is now checking the uh, the branch if it builds, if it compiles, if the tests are passing, and then there's actually Cypress tests as well that goes through. Maybe we can see that. If we go here, we can see that I have some failed ones here prehistorically. So it runs build, it runs integration tests. So the integration tests are actually Cypress tests that actually click through the UI. But we have two failed integration tests that we might actually need to take care of before I can merge. Otherwise, it's not going to go out into production. Generate test reports. We actually have the test results right here, pending, 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 passing, 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 passing. There's a timeout for what? For the stakeholder access to navigate all the pages. Yeah, of course you're not going to find the stand-up page because you're a stakeholder. You're not allowed to navigate to the to that page. So maybe that's something we can fix while we're at it. Stakeholder. Here's my Cypress tests. Stand up. No, I don't want you to visit the stand up. So that should not exist, and you should not be allowed to go to it. So the stand up is literally a process view where you go through like a walk the board thing, and it's for the development team where you just have a organized way to go through stand-ups so that you remember to do everything and all of it. However, a stakeholder should not go into that page. Let's see if we have I have a page config that sets up access and everything for everyone. So let's just verify that I might actually have updated the roles. Yeah, edit roles, owner and collaborator. Yeah, stakeholder is not allowed to go to stand-up page. So I actually updated that without thinking about updating the Cypress test. So let's do that. That was a good catch. And stand up from state. So these are quite simple. The Cypress tests. What they do, they just visit all the pages, make sure that they're loading, make sure there are no errors, just clicks through everything in the sidebar as if you were logged in as the different roles that I support in the system. So it's sort of like a smoke test, but that allows me, so I can't really push to production if there are errors in loading any of the pages. And then with the exhaustive tests that I have on all the mutations, I think I'm fairly good covered for a pretty low price. And it takes what, 5 minutes on that I'm not like looking at these. So when I push, this just runs for 5 minutes, and then I know if there are any loading errors at least on all the pages for the different roles. So that was pretty nice to have set up. We have our pull request here. That it's voting, and we can see that the CIs are running. Speaking of running, I need to run to work. But as soon as this passes, which hopefully now that we updated the test, it will, then I'm going to merge this into the main branch and push it in. That will automatically push it to production, providing that all the tests are passing. And because if we go back here to actions, we can take just a quick look on the CI. These, maybe that one. This is what a successful run looks like. So it sets up, just gets all the code changes, runs the build to make sure that everything is building, and then it runs all the tests, both the integration tests and tests. And if all of those are passing, it checks if there's a need for database migrations. It only does this if it's pushing to production. and then it deploys. And it deploys on Vercel. You can have a staging Vercel set up here, so it deploys to that instead, and then have a separate, like sort of release to production CI. That could be beneficial if you have a lot of users and or you're more than one developer. So you sort of, as the system becomes more complex to keep track of, you might need more tests, or you might have someone actually checking things out in a staging environment. But that's a different. That might even be a YouTube video. Who knows? The builds are running. I need to go to work. The feature should now be complete. I That's Vercel crashing, unfortunately. That's about it. Cool. So later tonight, I'm going to start implementing the search feature. I will start at 7 in Swedish time and probably stream for like an hour or two. And we will go through, like, I've researched everything, how I want it to be done, and we'll go through all of that, go through a little bit of what's been done so far. Will probably be a lot of cleanup and refactoring in that as well. But eventually, I hope to get a working feature running where I'm using both full text search and vector database-based search, allowing, because I think that would be a really good way to sort of allow the search feature to find duplicates or find similarities between the different milestones and items. I do think that that will be quite a good feature going forward. But if you like this, please like, subscribe. Please join later today as I'm starting a new feature. And yeah, thanks for watching.